Hello, welcome to another edition of the incredibly creatively and appropriately named Query and Schultz program. My name is Jake Query. That is Derek Schultz. And Happy New Year to everyone. Derek, Happy New Year.
Yeah, same.
Brought to you, by the way, this might be the year, perhaps, that you've been thinking about for a while, going ahead and continuing that education or cementing yourself with a new degree. Why not do so with WGU Indiana? WGU ambition never rests. We'll talk more about all they have to offer in terms of Indiana's online accredited university, but a proud sponsor. At least I'd like to think they're a proud sponsor. We're certainly proud to have them as a sponsor for this program. But, Derek, NFL playoffs are set. Let's begin with that. What we now know, the Indianapolis Colts will go into Buffalo. They'll take on the Bills on Saturday. And if they win, their reward is then a trip to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. And
Sure.
if they win that, they're on to the AFC Championship game. But one at a time, it's Buffalo up first.
Yeah, you want to get to the AFC Championship, all you have to do is beat the two best teams in the NFL.
Right. On the road.
In back-to-back weeks. I mean, on the road, right? But
Correct,
yes,
you're right.
Technically, there will be, if my understanding is correct, some fans in Buffalo.
Yeah, but it's not like you're facing the
Not
typical
a
Bills
normal
Mafia, right?
circumstance,
They're only
for sure.
crushing 7 tables out in front of the stadium this year, not the proverbial 70.
It is a little wild, though, because obviously we took last week off, and there's so much that's happened in the last 2 weeks, right, where you have that epic meltdown, crushing loss in Pittsburgh, and then you have the crazy of Sunday where the Colts aren't playing until 4:25, and you're sifting through these early games, and you're rooting for the Dolphins to lose and the Browns to lose, and the Ravens were never going to lose to the Bengals, but that was also on the table as well, at least mathematically. So just a really, I thought, Jake.
And then you're rooting for the Texans.
That's right.
To hold
Later
off
on.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
To give the Colts the division.
At
and
the
of course, that
very
didn't happen.
least, you had relief knowing that the Colts were winning in by the time that they kicked against Jacksonville. So thank goodness for that, because you can imagine, let's say the Dolphins won that game, and then you're waiting for the Texans-Titans, nearly an overtime game. That would have been crushing with that field goal.
Yeah, okay, so let's go to this. The Texans and Titans, so the Colts win. The Colts game is in the bag, and then you flip over and you see the last 2 minutes of Tennessee in Houston. Tennessee loses that game. The Colts become the divisional winner, and they are the 4 seed. The Colts knew they were already in. It was a matter of whether they were going to be the 4 or the 7. It comes down to it, and Tennessee kicks a field goal to win the game, and it hits the upright and goes
Doinks
through
it in.
to win. I've said this forever. Hitting the upright should be like 5 points. Do you know how hard that is to do? The harder thing to do, you have something theoretically as much as like 53 yards away from you.
Mm.
How far apart are the goalposts?
I actually don't know. I don't know how far apart those hash marks are.
Whatever they are,
Yeah.
okay? Kicking the ball in between them is much easier to do than actually hitting the upright. If you hit the upright, that's massive, right?
Yeah,
Do you
this
know
is
how
kind
hard
of
that
like
is to do?
there are a couple of things in football games that are difficult to do that the reward isn't great, like a safety. A safety is only 2 points. It's really hard to get a safety.
Right.
Because a lot of times they give you forward progress coming out of the end zone. You know what I mean? Like, you have to really hit somebody deep into that end zone to get the safety call. Jim Aiello of the Indy Star has mentioned that it should be like catching the snitch, where, obviously Harry Potter is worth 150
Catching
points.
the
in
snitch.
Quidditch.
What?
In Quidditch, if you catch the snitch, it's worth 150 points and the match ends.
What?
You have to make sure that you're at least
What are you talking about?
trailing
Is this like
by
that Pokemon Go thing that was big for like
140
4
or
hours?
fewer. Again, Jake, what you think is like relevant and cool and that people know, I think is a much smaller audience than what I think is relevant and cool and what people know.
Well, I'm sure our 9-year-old audience is thrilled with your Harry Potter catching
There
the snitch
are people of all
references.
ages who enjoy Harry Potter. It's been around for 20 years.
The Wire, they talked a lot about catching the snitch, right?
That's a little more violent than what we're talking. Actually, you know what? Quidditch, if you got hit straight in the head with a bludger,
What?
like that could be really, really serious. Harry also fell off his broom and broke his arm.
Okay. All right. Well,
So you did occasionally have injuries.
okay.
When it
We're
comes
going to
to
get back to second grade and talk more about the playoffs. So anyway, the Colts and Jaguars, you knew, and I'll tell you what, when it was 20-14, I remember thinking to myself, if they lose this game, this is going to be the worst loss. And I mean, the most heart-crushing loss in Indianapolis Colts history was the home playoff loss to Pittsburgh. That was the most heart-crushing. The Vanderjagt wide right.
Yeah, because it felt like that was a team of destiny that was going to bring them their first Super Bowl title.
Absolutely. But if they would have lost that game, I mean, they didn't. I mean, it's a moot point now. But I was thinking this can't happen, right? And then Jonathan Taylor, who has been – remember Marlon Mack?
Yes, I am aware of a running back named Marlon Mack.
Marlon Mack we will never see again, right?
Probably not. You know what? In Marlon's defense, he's been a great teammate. And I do think that the Colts will at least have a conversation with him to see, hey, do you want to still be here? I mean, can we fit something in? Because, as we've seen, it's not really the days of 1990 where you just had one RB1 and that's it. But clearly Taylor's star has risen to the point where he's going to be the bell cow here moving forward. But really an historic day yesterday. 253 yards, a franchise record, 2 tuds. And he ended up going from 11th in the NFL to rushing, Jake, to 3rd. So not bad for a rookie season. Think about where – I love that picture there where it's just like, bye-bye. Think about where he was at the midpoint of this season.
Correct.
The Baltimore game, he gets benched.
He looked like Trent Richardson the first 3 games he played, right?
That's right. The Thursday night game in Tennessee, he does nothing. I think he had 9 carries for 17 yards. And ever since then, the Green Bay game, and then he actually sat out a game for COVID, the Green Bay game was the real turnaround. That's when you saw the burst. That's when you saw him break tackles. That's when you saw, I think what Ballard and this staff saw.
And I think, Derek, what he has done, and I'm not saying what he's learned how to do, because clearly in college he was a dynamic rusher, but getting more – I think the NFL is so fast, and the gaps in the NFL close so quickly that – and you see that with quarterbacks a lot. Quarterbacks that are making throws early in their career that they're so used to making because those gaps – they don't realize how quickly those gaps close. I think for Taylor it was a matter of just letting the game slow down to then be able to determine when he gets to the line. He was just a straightforward runner for the first couple of games there. He's now learning to kind of be patient for that split second, wait to see where the hole is, and then boom, he's gone. We saw it in his last run yesterday.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, sorry. But he sees that gap. He kind of hesitated a second, and then he's off to the races.
And I think what's most impressive about it is that clearly in the second half, and a lot of Colts fans were upset that they were throwing so much, clearly in the second half, the Jaguars were selling out for the run. I mean, they had everybody up there, and they were saying, okay, we can't let this continue because the Colts were gashing them 7. I think they finished with like yards a carry, right? Cumulatively as a team. Obviously, a lion's share of that was Taylor. But for him to break that when they're still playing run shows – what kind of player he was not only yesterday, but what he's been over the second half of the season and the after contact and all of that. That's really what was missing for Jonathan Taylor in the first half was that he was getting hit, go down. And now you see not only a little bit of the burst and all of that, but also the physicality of runs.
One of the things that I thought about during the Colts-Jaguars game, I keep saying yesterday.
It's been a 2-week break, Jake, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a break there.
But I really feel bad for franchises that were new into their respective leagues in the mid-90s. The color schemes that they came up with that were hot during that time lasted kind of like Quidditch. It was just a small window fad that didn't have staying power. And those teal pants.
There's a whole theme park for Harry Potter where millions of visitors go every single year. Maybe less this year because of the COVID situation.
Yeah, I would think less.
At Universal.
But those light teal pants.
You know what? How about this? Unpopular opinion.
The helmets are great.
I like the Jaguars. I like the black and white and then the all black, jet black helmets.
The jet black helmets are cool.
And you mix in the teal. Look, teal, there's not a whole lot you can do with teal, right? My first car, 1989 Honda Accord, flip-up lights, teal. Really? So I have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for the color teal, but I understand it's not very versatile.
Think about mid-90s expansion teams.
You're right. And in Carolina, it's very bright, that blue. I think they were going for the Carolina blue Tar Heel thing, though.
The Arizona Diamondbacks, didn't they use teal originally? They were like teal and purple.
Tampa Bay Rays were like all the colors of the rainbow, weren't they? First logo.
The Raptors, I don't know what they were doing bright originally.
Purple. Yeah.
The Grizzlies.
90s fashion.
Did the Grizzlies also incorporate some teal into the mix?
Which has come back. 90s fashion is very loud. Like bright colors in your face, big block letters, like all that. Yeah. And but it's become popular again.
Also to talk about over the course of today, college football. There's a lot to talk about there, so we'll get to that as well, including, and I have a feeling we're going to disagree. I have a feeling we're going to disagree about some things that took place with Indiana.
Oh, God, do we have to talk about what took place with Indiana? Personally, I'd rather not talk about, but I understand, yeah. It was an interesting bowl season. I was overall, Jake, and we'll get to this later on, I'm worried that we're kind of reaching a point in college football where people are tuning into, let's say, the A&M Carolina game and saying to themselves, why do I care about this game?
Correct.
But you know what's funny? What is this? What's on the line here?
But here's what's funny. Give me a year off the top of your head from like the 80s or 90s, 70s, whatever it might be, right?
89.
Okay, 89. So the 1989 college football season, it's very easy to now say retroactively, like, I missed 30 years ago when all the bowls mattered. Did they?
It felt like they
did. They?
It felt like they did, though. Like I
mean,
remember,
but you had the national championship where it was the national championship game.
Sure.
Was whoever was ranked number one in the polls playing, and if they won, they were the national champion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Not always were they playing number two.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then, oh, my goodness, like Notre Dame is – I think 89 might have been the Notre Dame, West Virginia year maybe.
That was the Rocket – I think that was the Colorado year.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
88, the Notre Dame championship year where they beat West Virginia.
But either way, it's not like every bowl had national championship implications. I mean, the Cotton Bowl – the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl was always just the Big Ten champion versus the Pac-10 champion, and that was it. It didn't have national champion.
But I think the Rose Bowl, I think, was in its own category as a game that really mattered, even when a national championship.
Granddaddy of them all.
But
I get it.
But I remember feeling like the Cotton Bowl mattered. Like you can call yourself Cotton Bowl champions.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just simply saying, and I agree with you that yes, it felt like it mattered, right? But how did it matter any more than it does now?
No, I'm with you. I just think
it's because there were only, Derek, I think it was this. I don't think it was that there were more bowls that had national championship implications, but there were fewer bowls, and there was a prestige that came with it. Now when you have the squeezable Mayo Bowl and the –
Yeah, Duke's Mayo Bowl.
What is that?
The Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Duke's Mayo?
Duke's Mayo? You never had Duke's Mayo?
First off,
really good.
Okay, no,
really good, like a higher quality mayonnaise.
There's no such thing as a higher quality mayonnaise. First off, that is
Duke's
the biggest oxymoron on the planet. Mayonnaise is the most disgusting condiment ever known to man. It is basically it's like devil spawn in a jar.
So let me. Is this a personal vendetta? Mayo, or are you mad about the bowl game itself?
I don't even know.
I want to try to separate.
I don't even know who was
feelings.
in the bowl game.
Wisconsin, they dropped the trophy in the locker room.
That's only fitting
Wisconsin
because
and Wake Forest, I
Wisconsin's been smashing mayo for 100 years, right?
That's right. It's one of their main exports.
It is. Mayonnaise is so disgusting that I don't even care. If Clemson played in, and I'm a Clemson fan, if they played in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, although this year maybe they should have, I no way.
You don't like chicken salad?
No.
No?
Nope.
Love chicken salad.
I don't like anything with mayo.
Potato salad?
But my point being, there's so many bowl games now. When you turn it on, the Boca Raton Bowl and didn't Hawaii wanted their own team to play in a bowl every year, so they just came with a Hawaii Bowl.
Or it was originally, I think, wasn't it Aloha, and then it became the Hawaii Bowl?
That might be.
And they played on Christmas or Christmas
Eve.
There's
the famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
Yep.
There's
the FIP Bowl.
Having said all that, I'm kind of surprised Indianapolis has not come up with a bowl game. I know that they have the national championship game here eventually, but
they've always said they feel like the Big Ten championship is their bowl game, which would be more than.
That's fair.
No offense to Indianapolis,
it would be tough to do that back to back.
It's mostly a destination thing. Like these bowls are in Tampa and LA and places like that.
That's why
nobody wants to go to Detroit.
Do they still do the
January.
pizza Little Caesars Bowl?
I believe so. Yeah.
Who's in that this year?
I don't know.
It
used to be the Motor City Bowl.
Where was Ball State's bowl game?
Arizona Bowl.
That's a good one.
And it was in Tempe, I think. I think it was not Tempe. Where's
Chirp?
Where's the University of Arizona? Tucson. Yeah.
How about Mike New and the Ball State Fighting Cardinals winning the first bowl game in school history and doing so in emphatic fashion?
Yeah, actually.
Congratulations. A great job for Mike New and the Cardinals.
Let's take our first break, and then we'll come back and talk about all this.
We have to get to today.
I still want to get to Colts stuff. Bills matchup.
Can I put my hat on?
As well, we've got to discuss that. Indiana flops against Ole Miss. Notre Dame did about what we expected them to do, and Clemson got put through a trash compactor by Ohio
Brutal.
State in their semifinal
Do you like
game.
my hat?
That's sharp, yeah.
Do you not like the flat brim?
I think the problem is that anytime a gray-haired person wears a flat
You're
bill,
right.
you're trying too hard.
I don't disagree with that. I got to break the bill in a little bit.
Like,
but
unless you're really famous, which I guess, locally we're pretty famous. So maybe you can get away with it.
If you think so. But pretty good hair. Aside from the gray, I have decent hair. So
We'll come back, talk plenty more football. All of our features
from the shop, by the way.
have carried over into 2021, so we'll get to all of those. And New Year's resolutions as well. Plenty to get to. Stick
New Year's
around.
resolutions.
It's Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score!
Welcome back. It's Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network alongside Jay Query. I'm Derek Schultz as we enter our 11th year of this program, which is really a testament to not only obviously our brand and staying power, but the cultural and societal impact of Query and Schultz. So we really appreciate you tuning in and
11 years,
watching and listening. Well, technically 11 years. This will be our 11th year. We've completed 10 years because it's 2011.
Did I have the gray?
2021.
Did I have the gray temples in the beginning?
No. If you go back and look at the original photos of ours, I think you can do that if you go to the Query and Schultz Facebook page. Our avatar over the years, you can go back and search through it. You have jet black hair in that first picture. Remember we had cross hey, we're afternoon drive guys. Yeah, we talk sports. You had jet black hair. And you were probably the same, size and everything as you were now. Because it wasn't – remember, you gained some footage after we started the show, but then immediately melted it back. I was heavier. I was thicker. I was benching like 235 at that time. So I was thicker.
Which is about what I was weighing.
So it was muscle. Muscle weighs more than fat. So I don't want people to see that and be like, oh, Schultz was big. It's really not that. It was just more mass.
Okay.
Especially in the neck area.
Do you think there's any coincidence other than just simply age that 11 years with you and I'm that much more gray?
No, because I'm starting to get it too, where I get little gray hairs that are sprouting.
When I had my heart attack, they asked me, they said, just out of curiosity over the last decade, have you been doing any heavy lifting? And I said, if only you knew.
Oh, God.
If only you knew.
You're just the worst. It's amazing that we've made it this long. Thanks to Wood Warbler Coffee. They are our sponsor, not only of this show and of this segment, but a good friend of ours as well. You've known for many years.
A long time.
Local coffee out of Noblesville. You can also order online, woodwarblercoffee.com. They do provide local pickups, so if you are in the Indianapolis or Noblesville area, obviously you can go over there and pick it up yourself and save on the shipping. But we have Hot Cup of Schultz coming your way once again for 2021. It was a huge hit at the end of last year, just huge. But also all kinds of other delicious coffees. He's got the Indy 11 blend, the Bird Song blend, the Grateful Dead song. It's bird-friendly, one of only a handful of roasters that have that distinction from the Smithsonian. So check them out online, woodwarblercoffee.com, and get yourself either a hot bag of Schultz or 3 hot bags, a hot sack.
Did people buy the hot sack of Schultz?
Yeah, we sold a lot of sacks, a lot of hot sacks. Yeah, I bought a hot sack.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
It is. I mean, I will
send it to my mother-in-law.
It's great coffee. I don't necessarily like the name of Hot Cup of Schultz, but the coffee itself is very good. And I'm not even necessarily a coffee guy, and I like it because it's not very acidic.
And Jeff and I talked briefly over the holidays, and there's a chance that we also release a query coffee. We were kind of workshopping a title.
Extra bold?
You know, my apprehension with that is that if we're going to attach our show name, because basically, you know, you and I are intertwined. If we're going to attach our show name on something, I want there to be demand for it. There clearly was demand for a hot cup of Schultz. I just don't know if that demand is there for a J Query coffee.
The Query coffee is very simply, you know, like all coffee, it's hot, but it also can be enjoyed cool because that's what I am. I'm hot, but I'm pretty cool.
Like I said, questionable demand, I think,
Okay.
for that.
Uh-huh.
Not really a built-in clientele and audience.
Let me tell you what I thought was questionable, and I got some heat for it, and I think it's polarizing, but I want your opinion on this. I thought Indiana had a great football season, obviously. Yes, they did not beat a team with a 500 record, but look, you got to beat who's on your schedule. And Indiana, you know, the win against Penn State kind of sent those two teams. It was a boulder in the stream for both programs. And Indiana here, I thought the most impressive thing was going to Wisconsin and getting that win over what I thought was a very good Wisconsin team.
It was the best team they beat this year.
Yeah. So kudos. And Tom Allen, Coach of the Year, well-deserved. He's the National Coach of the Year. And I will eat crow on the fact that I questioned whether or not Tom Allen could be the guy for a Big Ten program. And he clearly is, and kudos to him. I realized that people were upset that Indiana was relegated to the Outback Bowl. And people thought they should have been in the Citrus or a bigger bowl and that the Big Ten didn't properly defend Indiana. So Indiana goes into the Outback Bowl, and they take the Outback Bowl patch, and they use it to cover the Big Ten logo. And then they put LEO on their helmets instead of where it said Big Ten. So they are making a statement. And I know Tom Allen says this was just coincidence and, you know, unfortunate time. They were making a statement against the Big Ten, plain and simple. Here are the three things that I have issue with. Number one, by doing that and making that statement, even though you're using the Outback Bowl patch, what you are saying is this is a bowl game that we shouldn't be in. Our conference did us wrong and forced us to settle, Derek, for this bowl game. Well, that's a disrespect bowl game that's invited. And I think the Outback Bowl is a good bowl. I mean, it's not a completely – I mean, I think of it as a prestigious bowl game. But nonetheless, you're making it sound like we're too good for this bowl because our conference did us no favors. You're Indiana, okay? I mean, have some sustained success for a while before you start kind of making those statements, number one. Had a good year, don't get me wrong. Number two, the Big Ten issues checks to every team within its conference despite what they did. You can go 0-10 and you're getting a portion of the money that Indiana or Ohio State or Wisconsin is getting by going to a bowl game. Ohio State getting into the college football playoff is a huge payday for the Big Ten. I'm assuming Indiana's going to willfully and gladly take that check and cash it. So you're still part of the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is doing you a pretty solid financial favor in a year when financial favors are hard to come by. And third, and mostly, Derek, if you're going to make that statement and you're going to make a storyline, quite frankly, you got to go out and beat a team that has a sub-500 record in the SEC and is an afterthought in that conference. Ole Miss, historically, over the course of this season, I should say, Ole Miss had zero rushing defense, none. 104th in the country against the run. So what does Indiana do? They throw 23 times in the second half with a quarterback with a separated shoulder. It was total ineptitude in the second half of that game from Indiana, and they embarrassed themselves, not because of the way necessarily that they lost the game, but because of the bravado they showed beforehand. They set themselves up to be embarrassed.
Yeah, they put themselves out there. It really was the disaster scenario for Indiana. And look, even when I said this, I knew there was a 0% chance of this happening. But, Jake, this is why I mentioned 2 or 3 weeks ago that this was a lose-lose situation for Indiana, because it was. This was a lose-lose situation. You beat Ole Miss. Who cares? No one cares. The program cares. Great. You beat beat the Bull Streak.
They haven't won a bowl game in 30 years.
Yeah, it's good for the program.
10,595 days.
But, Jake, people were saying, oh, well, now they have to go out and blow out Ole Miss. Who cares if you blew out Ole Miss? It doesn't mean anything. Ole Miss, everybody blew out Ole Miss. That was worth a darn this year. Yet you lose, and it really, really discredits your place, fairly or unfairly, this season. And
right.
I think it really casts a shadow over what Indiana did this year. It doesn't take away anything. They still beat Michigan. They beat Penn State. I don't care how bad those programs are. Indiana's been pounded by those teams for so long that it was important for them to do that. But it really does cast a shadow and leaves that bad taste in your mouth over what was supposed to be an historically great season for the program.
I think they embarrassed themselves.
Oh, they absolutely embarrassed themselves. Ole Miss was down their leading rusher, their top 2 receivers, and their top tight end as well. They had little to no incentive to win that game.
And they can't stop anybody.
And they still won. And Indiana putting up 20 points against that defense was really embarrassing. And it's sad, Jake. It's kind of a shame. I do think that they put themselves out there. I have no problem with Indiana standing up for themselves. Look, Northwestern beat Auburn, and IU lost to Ole Miss. Indiana.
What about Iowa State? Everybody was upset saying Iowa State was, three-loss Iowa State. Iowa State went out and doubled up Oregon.
I understood Indiana getting left out of a New Year's Six Bowl. What I didn't like was Indiana getting then passed over for the Citrus by Northwestern, who has no history. Northwestern has no brand power. Getting passed for Michigan, Ohio State, fine. Northwestern doesn't have any brand power. They until the last 20 years, they were Indiana, basically. And Indiana, by any measurement possible, had a better season at that point than Northwestern, who lost an embarrassingly bad Michigan State team. But you get passed over, then Northwestern wins and Indiana loses, and then Iowa State wins. You know what I mean? It kind of casts
Who's calling you?
I get those robocalls.
What's this one about?
I don't know. It's from Evansville.
Oh, really? Is it? Do you think it's your student loans have been forgiven?
No, actually.
Health insurance?
We're about to be done with that. We've only got a couple hundo left.
What about your mortgage? Home mortgage? Everything good?
No, everything's good.
They might have an awesome opportunity for you there.
Don't worry about me, Jake.
Your Social Security number's been compromised.
With my branding.
You better answer that.
No, actually.
They're going to turn it over to the FBI.
I'm talking to them about extending my car warranty. So that's what I've been.
If you Googled those 2 words, I got news for you. That phone ain't dying anytime soon.
I thought it was on silent.
Listen, I mentioned that Indiana's going to get part of that check from Ohio State. Unbelievable, historic performance from the Buckeyes, and they absolutely demolished Clemson at the line of scrimmage. Trevor Lawrence, I know that people are going to say, well, Fields now maybe gets into the conversation of number one. No, Trevor Lawrence will be the number 1 pick in the draft, assuming he comes out. But Ohio State absolutely demolished Clemson on the offensive and defensive lines. Fields played out of his mind, no question about it. That was a absolutely dominating performance. I'll be curious to see if Ohio State can duplicate that now against Alabama.
Yeah, it was really impressive. And, you talk about putting yourselves out there.
How about Sermon, by the way?
Yeah, wow.
He never got more than 13 carries in a game prior to the Big Ten championship game
in
the college football playoffs.
They were hiding him the whole time, I guess. You talk about putting yourselves out there with Indiana. I think Clemson did as well, particularly Dabo with the 11th ranking. And look, if you have a problem with Ohio State only playing 6 games, I get where people are coming from, but he made so much of that it was absurd. It was absurd to think that Ohio State deserved to be 11th in the poll. Well, it was absurd.
Okay. Here's the thing, and I'm not trying to defend Dabo Swinney here. This is a tough defense, but as an explanation, I do understand what he was saying, which was, I don't think that they're the 11th best team in the country. I just think that you rank the teams that have played a full schedule, and then you rank the teams that did not. It's very petty, especially considering it's not Ohio State.
It's not their fault.
Of the games that were canceled, they were not Ohio State's fault.
And I think one of them was. But it's not their fault that the Big Ten started late. Like that, Ohio State had no control over the fact that they only were able to have a 6-game season for the most part. So, look, I saw his explanation, but once you put Ohio State 11, people are just going to take that and run with it. And I think Ohio State felt like they were the better team last year.
I think that was the bigger motivator. I think last year's game was the bigger motivator, Derek. And last year's game and this year's game with Clemson, Ohio State, not to get too into it, but they were very similar to one another in the fact that, yes, Ohio State dominated Clemson to a level not like last year's, but a targeting call, which were the right calls. Targeting call on a quarterback that kind of moved into the hit. It was the right call this year again, but it was devastating to Clemson's defense, and they already started in the first half without the captain of their secondary, who was out because of a targeting call against Notre Dame. That rule, I understand the rule.
I think the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
I think that's fair.
I think we should look at that again as far as an ejection coming, as far as that all that's concerned. But one kind of a bigger thing here, if we're taking the wide angle view of this, it just shows that Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama are just on a different level than everybody else. We had a lot of talk about who's number 4, and A&M and Cincinnati lost to the 4th best team in the SEC. Great story. Georgia was the 4th best team in the SEC this year, and Cincinnati lost. It was a game they should have won, but they lost. A&M didn't do anything against Carolina. Does anybody really think that A&M would be within 10 or 14 of any of those other 3 teams? And Notre Dame did exactly what we expect them to do. They were outclassed by Alabama. I didn't think that game was actually as ugly as I thought it could get.
I would agree with that.
I thought they were a little more competitive after that 14-0 hole. But this is the thing with college football now. There are the haves and there are the have-nots. And it used to be that the haves were 10 to 12 teams, and now the haves are 3. You have 3, and then you have everybody else.
I would agree with that.
And it's nice that, Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma and Notre Dame and some of those other teams at the top of Tier 2 are pretty good.
Oklahoma is one, I will say, Oklahoma's one that maybe merits having been the 4th, because their offense is pretty prolific.
Yeah, but, Oklahoma is another one of those teams. They did have the epic game against Georgia in the semifinal, if I remember right. They've never won a playoff game either.
Right.
And a lot of times when they've gotten on this stage, like last year, they've gotten smoked.
Right.
So – that Tier 2 is still a big gap between Tier 1
Do you like
and Tier
Oklahoma?
2.
Have you been to the state of Oklahoma?
I've never been to the state of Oklahoma. I've never minded Oklahoma.
I've been to Oklahoma and the northeast. I've also driven through the panhandle of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there are 11 panhandles, 9 states. No, I'm sorry. 9 states, 10 panhandles in the country. Do you know the only state with 2 panhandles?
Oklahoma.
No.
Okay, I have
That's
no
a good
idea.
guess. You don't know?
No.
I personally think you could kind of make the argument that Texas has 2 panhandles.
Yeah.
But it's only given credit for 1. There's a state that has 2.
I don't know.
Do you want to think about it?
I don't. Why don't you just tell me?
Well, I'll do it this way, and this gives incentive for people.
I know Connecticut has a really famous panhandle, the Gold Coast.
Connecticut is,
if you will.
Connecticut is known for a panhandle.
Fairfield County stand-up.
It is a panhandle state. That is correct.
Yep.
But only one has 2 panhandles.
I'm not real focused on that.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying. See,
Alaska.
This is what we call a tease.
Okay. Nobody cares about this, Jake.
But I'm not saying they care. But people are listening and or watching right now, and they're going to say to themselves, you know what? This is actually a good trivia question. I'd like to know the answer. So I'll drag it out just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you drag out everything. Certainly.
Okay. Right. What are we getting to next?
Let's mention Ball State as well.
We did.
Arizona Bowl win. No, I know you congratulated them, but they were a 9.5-point dog in that game. They were a heavy underdog to Buffalo as well. So they won back-to-back games where they were essentially double-digit underdogs.
Their offense, man, flip a switch.
And they turned in the best season in school history. I think we can say that. I mean, it was an historically great season, a MAC title, and their first ever bowl win. So congratulations to Mike New. These programs, Jake, it takes a minute sometimes for things to grow. And I didn't think Pete Lembo left him in a terrible spot. Pete Lembo did an admirable job. Yeah. They went to a bowl game or 2. They had a winning record or 2, if I remember. He had Keith Wenning, who was a nice player at quarterback. So it wasn't like Ball State was in like disarray or anything like that. But they never won a bowl game, and they hadn't won a MAC title since '96. And for them to come in and do that, given the circumstances this season, just a really, really impressive 2020.
And you're right. It took a little bit for Coach New for everything to click. Mm-hmm. But man, I mean, their offense, late in the year there, I mean, they were fun to that bowl game. They were fun to watch. I mean, that was absolute domination. They jumped out.
Them.
They jumped out, and it
was 34 donut.
No question. 34 what?
34 donut.
Donut is a term that I used as a kid with my dad when we would play basketball. So
I was hopeful that they would have a chance to win. I didn't expect them to completely ragdoll a ranked state team like that.
Nobody says ragdoll, Derek.
But when you're up 34 donut.
I know you've been trying that, but nobody's doing the ragdoll.
Oh, it's already. It's coming.
No,
it's coming,
okay.
My man.
Great.
Everything that I ever say on this show becomes
end up with a little Schultz ragdoll. Is that what you're saying?
See, you don't understand the term. That's the problem. You're taking it too literal. Like it's not actually a physical ball. It's just a term that people use that's hip and cool and fresh for 2021.
Okay.
And you could borrow it. I'll let you. I don't have license over that term. Unlike my name, I did trademark and license that.
Sure you did.
We'll come back with our features.
Sure.
We've got some
The name
basketball to
Schultz
mention.
is trademarked.
Including huge news for the city of Indianapolis when it comes to the men's basketball NCAA tournament. We'll come back with that as well, and maybe the panhandle garbage.
It's a great question.
Gobbledygook, whatever.
Okay.
Q&S, ISC.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Query Schultz. By the way, geography might be one of the classes you can take if you have an interest from WGU. WGUindiana.edu. Talking about Indiana's largest online accredited university. And, you know, ambition never rests, Derek, and that's the bottom line. If you are thinking about going back to school, continuing your education, why not think about doing so at WGU, which has now been around, Derek, believe it or not, for 10 years, right? Sage the Owl?
Yeah.
Been overlooking and offering opportunity for 10 years throughout Indiana.
About as long as this show.
That's right.
That's why this is a marriage that makes sense for us. Outside of the mascot.
No,
I
love
that doesn't make a lot of sense for the show.
When it comes to whether you're talking about just simply completing an education that you might have left on the table or you want to make a career change, WGU Indiana is exactly there for that, because it allows you the flexibility to work around your own schedule, the hours that you'd like, whether you're perhaps a working parent or just somebody that has full-time job or whatever the occasion may be. That's the beauty of an online education. And again, WGUindiana.edu is the website. Derek, the NCAA Tournament has announced, we knew that Indianapolis, that this was going to be the case, most likely. I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the Indiana Sports Corps had a tournament at the convention center where they had a FIBA tournament, and they had a court already set up in the Indiana Convention Center that they used for a game between Richmond and Loyola. It was basically this contingency court that was set up in the convention center in one of the expo halls, literally black curtains, a floor, a hanging scoreboard, and tables, and a scorer's bench, and that was it. That court will remain, along with a couple of others, to be used as practice courts for the NCAA tournament. But now we know that Indianapolis as a region is going to be a bubble host for the entire tournament, using the convention center for practice courts, and then, and you correct me if I misspeak here, the courts of Bankers Life Fieldhouse,
Mm-hmm.
Lucas Oil Stadium, Hinkle Fieldhouse, the
Indiana Farmers Coliseum,
the home court APY, and Mackey Arena,
mm-hmm.
I believe Assembly Hall. Am I correct there?
That's it.
And Worthen Arena will be used like in an emergency situation if something should come up. But this is not a surprise. We had an idea this was going to happen. What if I told you, by the way, before we get into what all this means, that in the past there has been a Final Four participant in Indianapolis, A state university has come to Indianapolis as a Final Four participant since the time we've been doing the show, that is also a state that is the only with 2 panhandles.
Oh, God. Wisconsin.
No. Would you like a second guess?
Kentucky.
No. Their head coach stalked us at the Final Four in San Antonio.
Oh, West Virginia.
West Virginia is correct. West Virginia, the only state with 2 panhandles.
God, what a trip that was.
West Virginia? It's a
No,
beautiful state.
when you and I went to San Antonio, it was a whole new step in our relationship. The show had kind of become fractured, and I had an opportunity actually to leave the show and work on a project with a friend of mine, and decided to stay together largely
at the
because
Box
of
Factory?
that trip. No, this was a media project. I don't want to get into the details. All of those remain sealed.
Okay.
But yeah, that San Antonio trip where Huggy Bear was following us was definitely
everywhere
interesting.
we went. Bob Huggins was there.
All kidding aside, this is great. It's great for the state of Indiana. It's great for obviously for the city, restaurants, hotels. Really the lifeblood of Indianapolis.
In all honesty, here's the thing, and I know I don't disagree on the surface, right? But we need to find out more. I mean, you think about it. It's great for hotels, because these schools are all going to need hotel. I mean, it is a huge shot in the arm for the hotel industry. For restaurants, the teams, I guess, will be going, but are they going to be renting out restaurants in entirety?
Well, I wasn't really thinking the teams as much. I was thinking the support staff and media, and they all have to eat somewhere.
But the question becomes, Derek, how many people are going to be here? If it's a bubble, because I've heard the term bubble used, if it's a bubble, that means that teams are going to be staying in a hotel and theoretically eating in that hotel, going to the venues to play basketball. That's it. You're not going to have fans interacting with you. That is in violation of the term bubble.
Yeah, I do think that it will be.
For the hotels, it's huge.
I think it'll be somewhat of a bubble. I don't think that we'll have fans. I'd be surprised if we had fans, especially these are smaller venues. These aren't 80,000-seat football stadiums. You know what I mean?
Right.
Basketball has a little bit more of a challenge with that than football does. But I do think that there will be people out and about downtown, which is, at the end of the day, what you want.
Correct.
At least if you're those businesses. I know, we got to be safe, and, this thing isn't over and all of that, but these places are open and they need patrons.
Right.
And hopefully, at the very least, they'll have that. But Indianapolis and Indiana in general is uniquely set up for this because all of these places are so close, and I think all of them will work very well. I don't think this is a permanent thing like some people have mentioned. They're never going to want to just keep it all in one place. But given the circumstances, I think this is a great option for them.
Look, the beauty of the NCAA tournament, historically speaking, I love in the NCAA tournament the different cities, the different sites. It was always so fun to me as an Indiana fan and when I was a kid growing up and in college to wonder, what city are they off to? Rich Nye, when he was doing sports, he's now doing news, when he did sports on Channel 13, I thought Rich Nye always did an excellent job, whatever city he was assigned to follow for the NCAA tournament, whether it be Purdue, Ball State, Indiana, Butler, whoever he was assigned to do, he would do like a little vignette about the city where they were. Spokane, Washington is da-da-da, and, now the Purdue Boilermakers arrive, or I think it was Butler or whoever. The different floors before they homogenized floors was all fun to me. Yeah. All of that was kind of the excitement of the NCAA tournament, was just this, like a shotgun start across the country. You can't have this as the next best option, because of the very unique circumstances we're in. So kudos to the Indiana Sports Corps, the NCAA, and the city of Indianapolis for coming up with this.
Yeah, and you knew that they've got a lot of smart people, and you knew that they would have a place, and they've been working on this for months and months and months of trying to put something together with the idea that this was a very real possibility.
The NCAA,
Here it is.
Derek, as I understand it, it was very important to the NCAA. Theoretically, like if you were doing a true bowl like the NBA had, it would have just been 6 floors inside the convention center and Lucas Oil, and that's it, and that's where your games are played, and they're just in these generic venue halls. My understanding is the NCAA, it was very important to the NCAA to be able to have as close to a facsimile as possible for the players to have an arena and to be able to go into a big-time arena and, whether you pump in noise or virtual fans or whatever, but to come up with as much a facsimile of the reality as you possibly could. That's why they're playing in
and they'll
venues.
Get that. I mean, these
Right.
are. I know that we're boomers and all of that because this is our city and our state, but these are all great, unique venues.
It's very
I love the Farmers Coliseum and the recent renovation that they've had to update it. Bankers Life Fieldhouse is one of the best facilities, if not the best facility in the NBA. Lucas Oil is a wonderful facility. Assembly Hall, Mackey Arena with the history and everything like that. And Mackey with their recent renovations, I guess the 72.
Well, Bankers
with
Life
all that's done.
Bankers Life has
it's
renovations.
It's stunning. It's going to be great. We're going to have a park because we always do.
As a matter of fact, Derek, the two oldest venues in terms of how long it's been since they were renovated probably would be Hinkle and the Coliseum, right?
Yeah.
And they've both been renovated within like the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Because Assembly, Mackey, and Bankers Life within the last 18 months
Every
or so,
single
right?
one of those has been within the last 5 years.
Right.
Oil.
It is cool, though.
Mm-hmm.
It is cool.
No, I'm excited about it.
Who's the most random team that's made a Final Four appearance in Indianapolis?
Indy?
Yes.
West Virginia would be up there.
George Mason?
Oh, God, yeah. That would be number one. Because in 80, it was Louisville, Purdue,
UCLA.
Okay. Michigan State in 2000 was Michigan State, Florida, Wisconsin.
North Carolina.
Okay. That's right, because North Carolina was in the 8-9 game that year. I think
Bill
they had
Guthridge.
2 8 seeds. Yeah, they had Carolina and Wisconsin is one of the worst. 2000 Wisconsin is one of the worst teams to ever make a final. I mean, good for them. But that team scored like 45 game, if I remember right.
And then 06, you had
LSU,
Yep.
Florida, George Mason, UCLA.
Yep.
And was West Virginia, Butler, Duke, Michigan State?
That's correct.
When in doubt, guess Michigan State,
You're right.
especially in the
You're
21st
right.
century. 2015 was Michigan State, Wisconsin, Duke, and UK. And the next one was supposed to be this year. So I guess they'll get that.
Came to we forgot 91.
97 too, right? Was
91 and
one?
97. Yeah.
Arizona.
So Lute Olson came to the Final Four
Kentucky.
twice with two different teams in Indianapolis. He brought Iowa here. He brought Arizona here,
Interesting.
and he won it
Yeah.
with Arizona.
Yeah. Was that a big – I mean, you were a little kid then. Do you remember that being a big
The
deal
80
for the Final Four being
I
here?
do not remember that deal. I'm sure it was. I've been 7.5 years old, but I don't and Purdue was in it
Yeah.
with Joe Barry Carroll. I don't remember that being a big deal. I'm sure it was.
Generally speaking, tough for Purdue.
I remember the 9 Final Four. That was a big deal with Indiana State.
Tough week for Purdue with back-to-back road losses. But really, if anything, I was encouraged with how they played in both of those games.
Purdue's young.
It's a transition year, right? Tanner's never going to say that it's a transition. This is a transition year
Right.
for Purdue. But I think they're going to be, end of the year, a pretty good basketball. They're already pretty good. I think they're going to be even better.
It is possible, though, in this year that is so unique with the NCAA tournament that they're not an Indiana representation.
I'll be floored if Butler's not going to make it. Butler, this was, speaking of transition years, this is
Right.
This is tear it down and start over kind of year. But I'd be really surprised if both Indiana and Purdue missed the tournament. Really surprised.
I mean, Indiana's it's kind of the same old with Indiana, right? I mean, some games they look
the same. They've been the same exact team the last 4 years in a row.
I know.
I'm still hopeful because they're young and there's going to be hopefully going to be this progression that they're going to be okay. But man, it's really tough to get excited. The Big Ten's a meat grinder, but it's really excited to get overly excited about an overtime win over Penn State when really they were kind of gifted that Trace Jackson Davis foul in the final seconds of regulation, and he split free throws. I mean, I don't know if you watched the ending of that game, but Trace Jackson Davis was not fouled. And they call it, and whatever. Indiana's not going to apologize for that. Sometimes basketball, you get a break. Took advantage of it. Good for them. But this mid-January onward stretch for Indiana with how they finish the season, they're literally playing a top 25 team every night.
Let me ask you,
It'll be really tough
for Indiana fans, and I know that this is absurd to say because he's a freshman. In today's college basketball environment, this is not – in 1988, I remember when Jay Edwards finally got minutes, and it was, holy cow, as a freshman, look at how well this guy's playing. That was just unheard of. Ricky Callaway as a freshman was really good in 86. Now, when a guy is a 5-star freshman, he's expected to be a burst-on-the-scene guy. Is there concern? Not concern's maybe the wrong word, Derek, but are you surprised that Lander's not getting more significant minutes?
Christian Lander's like 14 years old. Isn't
I
he?
know. I mean, I get it. I mean, he declassified. He's supposed to be a
Yeah,
senior in high school, but everybody was excited about it.
I would hesitate about – he was a 5-star player in this year's class. and then he reclassified and was still, a heralded recruit and all of that. But I don't know if I was looking at Christian Lander as some
But what was the purpose
guy.
for Indiana having him reclassify and join a year early? There's all this hubbub about it. What was the point of that?
Well, they felt confident, and he felt confident that he was ready to play on the college level right now. And, he is getting minutes, so technically they're
Very
correct. But I think this was always going to be, this year especially, was going to be a growth year for him. Kind of, for a better term, a redshirt year without it being a redshirt.
What was the urgency in getting him there? What was to be gained by it?
They felt like he was ready to grow and develop right now and practice and play a Big Ten competition. Whereas, clearly you're going to grow and develop as a player more playing that competition.
Understood.
Than where he was Evansville, right?
Correct. Evansville Rights.
Yeah. Then playing, no offense to Evansville, they play some good basketball
Fair
down
enough.
there, but it's not the same level.
What else do we have to get to? We have
all of our features.
We have some segments, right?
Yeah,
Some
all of our
features.
features, and it's been 2 weeks, so people are really thirsting for those features. So
if
we're
they're
going to
thirsty
quench
for it,
that
they can
thirst
get a
for
hot cup of Schultz.
That's right. WoodWarburCoffee.com. So we'll come with our features. Love that play. Spider Bowl Bleep and our American Dairy Association Indiana Winners Drink
Right.
Milk Winner of the Week when we return. It's Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network.
Oh my God! We are ripping fast today. And how hard can it be, right? These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
Welcome back once again. It is the incredibly creatively and appropriately named Query and Schultz program here on ISC Sports Network. Jake Query, Derek Schultz, and it's one of our favorite times of the week because we get to do our American Dairy Association of Indiana Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week. And that means, Derek, I get to enjoy some ice-cold chocolate milk, which is not only fantastic and fabulous, but it's also an excellent post-workout refreshment because, Derek, the reality is this has all kinds of goodness inside of it, right?
That is good. All kinds of goodness inside of milk. Are you ready for milk facts?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it
Right.
up here. Chocolate milk, which you're
drinking my
drinking
milk.
right now, contains more carbohydrates than regular milk, and 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk has as much calcium as 10 cups of raw spinach. 10 cups of them.
Do you like raw spinach?
As much potassium as a banana. I actually do I like the spinach and arugula mix.
And a what?
Arugula? We get a spinach and arugula mix, usually, and like a little organic vinaigrette.
Is it called arugula, or you're saying a arugula mix?
Arugula.
But I know, but is that one word or two?
It's spinach and arugula. It's a mix.
Well, I know,
of them
but
together.
Is it a mix? It's a mix of spinach and arugula, and you're saying arugula, or arugula is the name of the?
No, it's just one word, arugula.
Okay. Anyway, I like to condense things also into one. That's why I like my chocolate
Once
milk.
this COVID stuff is over, you need to come over for dinner because I feel like you don't.
I'll put that.
You're
on
not
the
as
schedule.
sophisticated as I am as far as eating and all of that is concerned. As much vitamin A as 2 boiled eggs in what Jake is drinking right now. It's a lot of recovery nutrition. When you go to the gym and throw your ish around, drink some chocolate milk right afterwards because it'll really help your muscles. It fuels you. It's the best stuff in the world. Great.
It's pretty obvious who the Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week is, right?
Is it? Because I don't think that you picked who I picked.
What sport is your selection?
Justin Fields in Ohio State. I agree with you.
Oh, that okay.
That's not my pick.
Okay. Mine is like Justin Fields, a guy that played in the Big Ten football, guy that played in Big Ten football for
Jonathan
a school
Taylor?
that has red. Jonathan Taylor. To go out and set the single game. I mean, look, there have been some great running backs that have played for the Indianapolis Colts or the Baltimore Colts. But in Colts franchise history, I mean, Eric Dickerson, Marshall Faulk, Edgerrin James, Joseph Adai, for that matter, was a very good player. For Jonathan Taylor to go out and set the single game mark for rushing yards in a game and do so in a game the Colts had to get, including salting it and putting it away, absolutely Jonathan Taylor is my selection.
I love that one. Bye-bye. See ya.
It's a great photo.
A couple of big breakaway runs for him, including the game clincher. My winner of the week, Jake, also NFL, Alex Smith. What a cool story. Comes back from a catastrophic injury. You never know if he's going to play again, and yet here he is taking his third franchise into the playoffs. Look, he didn't play very well on Sunday night, and that game, we'll get to that in Biter Bowl Bleep, was kind of a farce anyway. But good for him and good for the Redskins. Even in that joke division, technically, Jake, you're old enough to remember the Redskins have been so irrelevant for so long that just Washington.
It's the Washington football team, Derek.
Oh, sorry. I've still been calling the Chargers San Diego.
Al Michaels dropped a Bitcoin reference. Did you hear that?
Did he? But he didn't call them Redskins, did he?
Yes, he called them Redskins and then said, "Oh, I owe my producer a second Bitcoin."
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Washington football team has been so irrelevant for so long that just making the playoffs is an accomplishment for them. Even if you're the least bad of 4 bad teams, which is the case in the 2020 NFC East. Good for Alex Smith.
Alex Smith had 17 major surgeries in 9 months to get his legs back to the point where he could play football. You'd mentioned 3 teams into the playoffs now, the Niners, the Chiefs, and the Washington football team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize that on the opposite end of that spectrum, and I didn't think that he looked terrible yesterday, but Mike Glennon.
I saw the graphic that you're going to mention.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Mike Glennon has been a quarterback for 3 different franchises in the year that those franchises ended up with the number 1 overall selection and used it to take a quarterback. He was quarterback in the Buccaneers when they ended up getting the number 1 pick and took Jameis Winston. He was quarterbacking the Arizona Cardinals when they ended up with the number 1 pick and took Kyler Murray. And he ends up now quarterbacking the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have the number 1 pick. And theoretically, unless something drastically changes, we'll take Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson unless Lawrence returns to Clemson, which I don't anticipate.
And if I'm Mike Glennon, I'm not sweating it. I've cashed tens of millions of dollars worth of money. Yeah.
$20 million in his career.
Lots and lots of money. So I'm good with it. And you're right. I thought that he actually played pretty competently.
He was fine.
Look, he's not very good. I mean, he's a QB2 that's playing QB1 because those are what the circumstances have dictated here. But I thought all in all, I've seen way more embarrassing starting quarterback performances than what I saw from Mike Glennon.
Including for Indianapolis over the years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely no question about that.
We've seen some bad ones.
How about our Love That Play brought to you by our friends at Love Heating and Cooling, love-hvac.com, 353-2141. They've been in business now since 2021, over 100 years. So a century plus 1.
How about that?
For Love Heating
Impressive.
and Cooling.
Love the guys at Love Heating and Air. Look, in order to last that long, Derek had mentioned, over now a century, you're entering your 2nd century. You got to have great product. You got to have knowledge of your product, great prices, integrity, and customer service. You get all that with Love Heating and Air. I've known it my whole life. I would not steer you wrong. Derek, let's go back to the photo of Jonathan Taylor. To me, that's got to be it, right? The one that what did you say it is?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, where he's waving.
And that's
basically. Not waving. I'm just for it.
I'm assuming that's the run that put this game away. It put the Colts up 2 touchdowns late in the game and secured them. That is the Colts right there. That's Jonathan Taylor running into franchise history and the Colts running into the postseason. That, to me, is my Love That Play.
It's weird because somebody brought up to me on Twitter, as much as we talk about Peyton and Luck, and I guess if you want to, you can include John Elway because they drafted him, Unitas, obviously, who played for them. As much as we talk about the quarterback history of this franchise, certainly if you just take the guys that wore a Colts uniform that played running back, it's got to be about the best list that any team can say, right?
Yeah.
Because, the ones that are obvious are the Ring of Honor guys, Edgerrin James, Eric Dickerson, and Marshall Faulk. But also, Frank Gore, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, he was here for 3 years. Lenny Moore, go back to the Baltimore Colts days. It's been a great – and even the guys that weren't that level of guys, Albert Bentley, Curtis Dickey, Joe Adai, all really nice players.
Joe Adai was a nice player. Randy McMillan was a nice player.
And so I'm not saying that Jonathan Taylor is there yet, don't get me wrong, but when you're putting your name up there, first guy to do this since Edgerrin James, second guy to do this since Marshall Faulk, that's pretty darn impressive. I don't care if you've only played 1 season so far. That's pretty incredible.
Eric Dickerson was so smooth, man. Eric Dickerson, watching that dude run, when he got in the open field, forget about it.
I do think, though,
smooth.
If we're doing pound for pound, actual best player of that group, Marshall Faulk, to me, is maybe the greatest all-around running back to ever play. I mean,
hard.
There was nothing he did that wasn't elite. He was an elite runner. He was an elite passer. He did everything.
Correct.
And
Edge is up there, though, man.
Oh, yeah. Edge is one of the more underappreciated.
His blocking ability was so impressive, right?
And if he didn't have the knee injury, I mean, we'd be talking about Edge, I think, is one of the greatest ever play.
To be honest
an
with you,
all-time great.
we mentioned really serviceable good backs in Indianapolis history. Dominic Rhodes.
Yeah.
Should have been the Super Bowl MVP.
One of my favorite interviews we ever did was with Dom Rhodes.
It's interesting.
Where he, talked about some of the issues that he had with drugs and all of that. And we didn't get into the part where he was in the car. And
he had an issue, Derek, where he was in a police car and
had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But good guy. Always
is
one of my
very
favorites.
likable guy. Mm-hmm. Very engaging personality.
We'll come back, wrap it up next. Biter Bowl to get to and
Schultz.
New Year's resolutions.
Oh, okay.
Is yours going to be, I'm going to work out more?
Sure, one every year.
It's Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Wrapping up our first edition of Query and Schultz of the new year, 2021, alongside Jake Query. I'm Derek Schultz. You want to do, let's start Biter Bowl Bleep, and then we'll end.
Biter Bowl Schultz, okay?
Biter Bowl Bleep.
Okay.
It's our favorite segment that we do. You guys know now. I give a statement. Jake and I go back and forth. We buy it, or we think it's Bowl Bleep.
All right.
You ready to go?
Okay.
Statement number 1. Jonathan Taylor. Oh, wait, sorry. That was Love That Play. Jonathan Taylor's game seal. 25-yard touchdown run. See, Jake, I have all the prep in front of me. You come empty-handed. The Colts should replace Phillip Rivers with Carson Wentz. Buy it or Bowl Bleep?
I think that's Bowl Schultz. The reason being, Carson Wentz, look, there are certain guys that you can look at them and say that their production went down because the environment around them drastically changed. I don't know if that's the case with Carson Wentz. I don't know what the issues have been with Carson Wentz. It would be disingenuous for me to say that I follow Philadelphia closely, but he clearly has regressed. He still has the same head coach and theoretically offensive schemes. I think Carson Wentz seems like a nice guy. He's a big body, but he comes with a huge price tag. And unless Philadelphia is willing to eat 90% of that price tag for you, I think you know what you're getting. To me, Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz is a lateral, years being, age being the only difference. I don't see the value in taking the flyer on Carson Wentz because you would have to be investing in something for a number of years.
I was reading into his contract, Jake, and there's some concern that it's even tradable with where it is right now. Like if they came to him and both sides met and they restructured a little bit so he could get out and get a fresh start and the Eagles could recoup some of that cost, then they can make it work. But as it stands right now, it's just going to be nearly impossible for them to trade it. That's why the Colts are one of the only teams that are talked about as a potential landing spot.
And because Frank Wright.
Well, that too, but it's a non-starter for a lot of other teams, given his contract situation. No, it's just way too big of a risk. And if the Colts are going to make a risk it in the draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Plus, that's where I am with it.
If the Colts, first off, if the Colts want to have a veteran back in them next year, or somebody who, has been in the league a while as opposed to a draft pick or Jacob Eason, then to me, you go with Phillip Rivers if Rivers is willing to come back, because I think Rivers has been more than sufficient this year. I think he's been very good, actually. If you said to me, you've got to go out and get a quarterback in the league, and I don't know now that this guy's going to be on the trading block, although I would think so, depending on what Lawrence and Fields do. If New York is cutting bait with Sam Darnold, I would take Darnold over because Darnold at least has the excuse of complete incompetence around him.
Yeah, and Adam Gase and all of that.
I mean, there are a lot more factors that went against Sam Darnold than went against Carson Wentz.
But you've already seen Wentz play at a very high level in 2017.
Correct.
You haven't really yet seen that with Darnold. I don't know, man. I'm extremely meh on both of those guys. Wentz, to me, the contract's a non-starter, and Darnold, there are some people that are convinced that he's a star, and I've just never seen it with him.
The challenge, I think, with quarterbacks in the NFL is, and David Carr, okay? You have, in my opinion, like a 14 to 18 game window to get your quarterback comfortable, or else they get to a PTSD that is just you can't recover from. If you throw a guy out there and you're changing offensive schemes and you're rotating linemen and you're not protecting him, and he is the only person in the stadium that can count exactly how many lights are on the Teflon roof because he's been laying on his back the whole time, the RCA Dome reference. But it's difficult to come back from that. And guys get to a point where, maybe Sam Darnold is already there, where it's just psychologically he can't break through. I haven't watched him enough to know, but I do think that he has some talent and some size and that kind of thing.
It's been a great sport. He's been a leader throughout and a good teammate and all of that. But, yeah, probably time for a change, certainly for him and I guess for the organization too. Statement 2, we were just talking about Carson Wentz. How about another Eagles one? Philadelphia should be punished by the NFL for tanking last night. Or, sorry, Sunday.
Punished, no, because it happens all the time. Look, wouldn't we be hypocrites if we in Indianapolis said that a franchise should be punished for intentionally losing games? Or maybe not intentionally losing games, but not putting forth your best effort? Let me ask you this.
I think you give a pass to winning teams over losing teams, though. We've very rarely seen yes, you had the Colts in 2011, but we've kind of rarely seen the circumstances play out as specifically as they did last night.
But let me ask you this. I was a little confused by this. What did Philadelphia have to gain?
Nothing.
But no. What was Philadelphia's motivation in tanking?
3 draft spots. So if they won that game, it would have cost them – they would have been drafting, I think, 10th, and since they lost, they're drafting 6th. Or it might be 6 and 9. I can look.
Or was it that they –
Well, in the NFL, Jake, big deal. The Jets had to trade up from 6 to 3 to get Darnold.
Does Philadelphia consider the Giants a bigger rival, and therefore they didn't want the Giants to win the division?
That had nothing to do with it. Giants fans like to think that, I think. It had nothing to do with that.
Did you notice Ron Rivera in the postgame handshake as he walks out and Doug Peterson's coming towards him? And you can't see, because you don't see Peterson, but you could hear Rivera as he's approaching Peterson go, "Hey, man, thanks. Thank you." And then they shake hands, and Peterson says, "Congratulations."
Little odd. As always, I think if you would have prepared people's expectations for this, it would be less of a big deal. Like if the Colts, people would have still been upset. In 2000, the famous Jets game with Curtis Painter, if the Colts had come out and said exactly what they were going to do, okay, this is when we're going to pull Peyton Manning, because clearly they had that pre-scripted and preordained that this is what they were going to do, it would have softened the blow. They had mentioned that Nate Sudfeld was going to they're going to try to work him in, but I don't think people expected it to be in the mid thrust into a 6-point game and the game on the line.
Look, I understand why. There were other games. If you look at that game, Washington and Philadelphia, Philadelphia had no postseason chance, right? Washington did. There were other games, Buffalo and Miami. Mm-hmm. Buffalo and Miami would have been the better Sunday night game, because Miami was playing for a playoff berth. Buffalo was playing for seeds. They both were going to be postseason teams, theoretically. They both were still in playoff contention. But they don't have the implications of the New York City television audience, the Washington, D.C. television audience, the Philadelphia television audience. It comes down in that point of ratings. And what we saw last night, or Sunday night, were 2 really bad teams, which should go to show you that ratings doesn't equate always to winning. They're 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
Simply say that. For what it's worth.
Just like we weren't fired by ratings. We were fired because some corporate fat cats.
We were laid off.
Looked at a spreadsheet and they cut 1,000 jobs. Went, okay, these guys in Indianapolis.
1,200.
This guy Schultz, we might keep him. No, actually get rid of him. No. That's kind of how that went down.
They have your name. It was employee.
Oh, they did.
5262.
They did. I talked to Ryan. He was in the room.
Okay, Ryan who?
Way above your grade, my friend. Yeah, a guy that I kind of became close with, but way above you were.
How'd that work out for
you? Ryan had no control of the situation ultimately. Yeah, that was not his call.
Incidentally, Ryan was in the second layoff wave.
Actually, yeah, you're right. he was like on
Of
November.
3. Okay.
Which playoff should expand? Buy it or bull bleep?
No, it's bull Schultz. I mean, as it was this year, we talked about it earlier. There were 3 great teams, and one of them didn't even show up. But Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and then big drop-off before Notre Dame. Oklahoma played well at the end of the year. Texas A&M had a good year.
Cincinnati would, I think,
Cincinnati
proved that they
were.
they were a good team. They should have won that game.
I mean, it would make it exciting as an Iowa State could get in and make some noise, and maybe a Cincinnati. But, I mean, look, the reality is you're extending the inevitable of Alabama versus either Clemson or Ohio State.
We can't find 4 teams. We can't find 4 worthy teams. Has there been a year in the college football playoff where we had – I guess Ohio State won it the first year as the 4 seed. So,
Yeah,
sure, there you go. One out of 7.
Right.
So far you've had 4 worthy teams. So, no, I'm against expanding. I think they inevitably will expand, but I'm against it. I would – in fact, I think a lot of our problems would be solved if we just went back to 2. And I say that in the wake of what Ohio State just did to Clemson.
Fair enough. But, I mean, this year, though, Derek, if you went to 2 and Ohio State would have been left out.
Oh, God, can you imagine how much they would have whined about that?
Yeah, well,
would have been crazy.
Yeah.
We'll come back next week with hopefully recapping a Colts playoff win.
No New Year's resolutions?
Oh, yeah, sorry, New Year's resolution. I am actually, you'll be happy about this. I know that I busted your chops about working out. I have never been a runner. I hate running. It's the worst.
It's not fun.
Yeah, I don't get people that like to run. I don't get people that run on vacation. Like, dude, chill out. Like, take a break. I'm going to try to run a mile. I'm going to take 1 day per week. I'm going to try to run a mile every day except for 1 each week and see how I do
that. You'll be running the mini.
Because I haven't smoked in like 10 years, so I think my lung capacity is probably back.
You're okay there. You could run the mini in May, although
– No, I don't want anything like that.
I would be –
I just want to run on my treadmill down in the basement.
I'd be surprised if we do the mini marathon.
Hopefully we're in a place where we can.
I hope so.
Still a long shot.
I am scheduled to do, Derek, if the mini marathon goes on, I'm hoping that this will be another year where I can do it. During my October procedure, and I can't remember if it was when I was sitting there and I was talking to the cardiologist, Dr. Benjamin Mottman. I said, well, listen, so will I be able to do the mini in May? And he said, yeah, I think so. And I said, why don't you do it with me? He said, I'll tell you what, I'll do it with you. I go,
that's
okay.
pretty cool.
So I got an appointment with him next week, and I'm going to ask him. He sent me a tweet that said, yes, I'm in. So I'm scheduled to do the mini marathon with the guy that put a balloon through my arteries and kept my heart alive. So my New Year's resolution is, if the mini actually goes through, to be able to continue my rehab to the point of doing that. That'd be my
I had another one for you. Be a little humble.
That's okay.
Do people do that? Sometimes I make New Year's resolutions for friends
Show
and
more
family
humility?
and all of that, and I say, hey, here's a New Year's resolution idea for you, like in a non-confrontational way.
When you are, look, I'm not going to lie. Being humble is, I think, actually, my humility is shown by the fact that as great as I am, I don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah, see, that's not being very humble.
I think it is.
I thought some of my humility was going to rub off on you just from us getting together on the show, but clearly that's not been
I'd
the
like
case.
this show to grow over the course of the year. How's that?
That's a good New Year's resolution.
Do what I can to try to make this show grow.
And ISC as well.
And we can, ISC as well. And then people can listen to the show also, right?
That's right. Podcast available, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeart, everywhere, all the major platforms. And you could also watch us on YouTube. We've got archive shows on our Corey and Schultz YouTube channel, youtube.com/Corey and Schultz, on ISC live Tuesdays at 6, which you're probably watching right
That's
now.
right.
And then Comcast, channel 81 locally, Xfinity, Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock.
When Mark Messier.
Yeah, but that's Bill's color, so I don't know if we should be wearing that hat.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Let's recap a Colts playoff dub next week. How about that?
Hey, our buddy Scott Swingle. Was it Swingle?
Yeah.
Was a huge Bills fan.
Mm-hmm.
Scott's no longer with us, but I know he's looking down on the Bills Mafia. And even though, obviously, I know people want the Colts to win, happy for Scott.
Yeah, Scott would be thrilled about it.
Happy for
Thanks
Scott.
to our crew, Jordan, Greg, Wes, everybody else here at ISC. We will see you next time on Query and Schultz.